different websites, and our main website is stopthecrime.net, and we're here to talk about the climate action plans, and we're going to get to that. But before we get to the climate action plans, you need to understand why the climate action plans are going to do to you what they're going to do and how this happened, because this is very serious. Just a question, how many of you realize something's wrong? Pretty much all of you. Okay, that's good, because you're going to realize there's a little more wrong than you may have thought. And what is important with this conversation is that you allow yourself to think about things you may not have heard before, and that you have an open mind. I will tell you that everything you're going to hear is fully documented, not only government documents, but resolutions. And you're going to see a table over there, and at the end, when we have Q&A, I'll go over there and show you. Those are representative of just a few of the climate action plans that our research team has researched globally. And the climate action plans are global. They're in Iceland, they're in China, they're in Russia, they're in all of South America, and they're right here in Santa Rosa. And so in order to understand how this takedown or coup d'etat with these plans occurred here, you need to understand a little background. So that's what we're going to go over right now. And this is an hors d'oeuvre. This is not intended to explain the depth of this, because really I want you to be able to walk out with your brains still in your skull. So yeah. And I will tell you, I didn't know what I didn't know. And at first, when I heard this, I was extremely skeptical. I didn't believe some of the things I heard. And there was an instance when my husband and I were at an event, and some people came up and were talking to us about a certain situation. And I told my husband, oh, that person belongs in a straitjacket. And c'est la vie, you deal with them. And I walked away. Well, this person appeared again a few months later at another meeting and was talking about the same topic. And I just thought it was absolutely nuts. And I'm not going to tell you what the topic is yet. But I'll tell you that I tasked my daughter to find out about this topic because I thought it was rather benign. And about a week or so later, at 3:30 in the morning, we received a phone call. And our daughter was sobbing on the other end of the line. And I thought that something had happened to one of our grandchildren. And she said, Mom, I looked into that topic that you told me about, and she said, it's real. It's real. So we had an emergency meeting with our family. Suddenly, our retired life was starting to shape up and look very different. And I was extremely skeptical, but I started to see that information. And for those of you that are taking notes, that topic ended up being an encounter that I had here in Sonoma County with Ted Turner. And it is on YouTube, and you can see it. It's called Ted the Terrible Turner. It's on YouTube. Ted the Terrible Turner. I'm not going to go into that topic right now. That can come at a later meeting after you've heard what we have to say this evening and hopefully done a little homework to understand our reality. So who's running America and the climate action plans? And what does the silent weapons system mean? What does that mean? Okay. We'll know our disinformation program is complete when everything the American public believes is false. I want you to think about that. This was former CIA Director William Casey, and he told us this. And I don't think people paid much attention. I certainly didn't. And this is on our website, stopthecrime.net. So as we look forward, we look at who's running America. And again, this is only meant to be a small portion of this evening's topic, but it's important to understand we're not running America. And in fact, globalists are running America. And when you look at Senate Report 93549, it's very, very clear. Our country, every year since 1933, has initiated a perpetual emergency war powers. Every year, it's reinitiated by every sitting president. And what that means is that when we're under a perpetual emergency powers act, the Constitution has been suspended. The Constitution has been suspended. We're under corporate law. We're not under constitutional law. And I can tell you, when I started to research this and investigate this, it was heartbreaking and depressing, and I felt very deceived and betrayed. But the documents tell us this. So this is one area that is going to take some time, I think, for people to digest. But I will just tell you, in order to maintain dictatorial control and authorization that many divisions of government agencies, corporate government agencies, the executive branch, we know that decisions are coming from the executive branch by executive order. That is the way it was set up through this. And that explains why we are out of control and we don't have control. It's coming from the executive branch. And the Senate report sits on top of what occurred in 1933. We were never taught this in school, at least I wasn't. And I can tell you, we're in a school right now. This is a school. And I thought, how appropriate that we're in a school. And we get to talk about what we were not taught in school, because I know there are many of you out here right now that are fighting against Common Core. And you realize that this is going to completely change what our children learn in school. That they're going to learn in science that global warming is a reality, and it's not. There are many aspects of Common Core that already happened to all of us when we were in school. So, how many of you have heard of what happened in 1933? Okay, well, you're going to hear about that now. Okay, what happened in 1933 is critical to understand what our foundation is that is being built up to why we're here now, all knowing something's very wrong. There was a bankruptcy that was concocted right after the Great Depression, when many of our grandparents were still struggling to survive. And what happened was they were expatriated. They had no knowledge of this. They certainly did not give their consent. America's gold was stolen by the international bankers. Our gold and silver was stolen. And we were collateralized as a nation against this concocted debt. What was collateralized? Our property, our equity, our children, and our souls. Our souls. So I won't get into how the souls become collateralized because that's a different conversation. But you need to understand what moved forward from there, what the bankers created. And it's important to understand and take a look at Senate Report 93549. It is on stopthecrime.net. It's on the home page. There's a large yellow section on stopthecrime.net that will talk about who's running America. And this also you can download from the website. It talks about the bankruptcy of America and the corporate United States and the New World Order, and how the Uniform Commercial Code replaced the United States Constitution. Extremely important to understand. We're a nation, we're USA Inc., and we're running on a corporate structure. It has a very significant structure. It's based on contracts. And we're going to get into that here in a bit, because some of these books on the table are contracts that have been signed for us and implemented for us. And you don't know about this because you don't need to. You don't need to. They don't think that you need to. Now,
recently there's been this video going around on the net called USA Inc. Depopulation and You with Deborah Tavares. And I think she has this site, stopthecrime.net, or she refers to it anyway. And she talks about in this video a document called Silent Weapons for Quiet Wars. I came over here to read this document and found it quite interesting. So I'm going to go through the whole document here in this video. The original video, I'll put links to the USA Inc. Depopulation, and I want to thank Ashley Law for referring that video to me. It's very disturbing, and this document is very disturbing as well. So I will include links to this and to the actual video, and it takes a little while to get through. It's 44 pages long, but there's also a lot of technical pages in here that I'm just going to scroll past, and if you care to read them yourself, pause the video to read those technical parts of it. But thank you very much for listening, and hopefully you can get all the way through it.
Okay, I wanted you to know that you don't have to read the 44 pages. You can actually go to stopthecrime.net and listen to this wonderful man who created the YouTube. So you can listen to him read it to you. And I would suggest that you read it. It is, or listen to it. It's one of the most important 44-page documents that you could ever read. And essentially, when you build upon the Senate Report 93549, which identifies all of you and me as enemies of the government, then you build upon the Silent Weapons document, which is a technical research manual that was put together in the 40s by the U.S. Air Force, Rockefeller, the international bankers, and Harvard University. It is a manual that is intended for economic domination of the world and control of all energy. Now, energy is not what you think about, just PG&E and water and gas. It's your energy. We're all energy, and we're frequencies. And it's important to understand they plan to control it all. Now, they say in the Silent Weapons Quiet Wars document that when you have a few wealthy people with the methodologies and the goal to control all energy on the planet, and they have not told us, it is considered a declaration of war. And so the Silent Weapons document is a declaration of war. In fact, William Cooper has it in the very front of his book, Behold a Pale Horse. And I would recommend that you read his book. He was killed for all of the reasons that he understood what was occurring. So the Silent Weapons Quiet Wars document then builds upon the fact that you're all the enemy of the state, and now war has been declared. And I didn't believe that either. But I can tell you that the documents prove it. There are other documents beyond this as well. Okay, this is a quote out of the Silent Weapons Quiet Wars document. And we have the availability at a print shop in Roanoke Park. If any of you want, there's information on the greeting desk at the front door. And you can get a source document printed up like this that has a number of documents in it. I like it because it's large and you can make notes and tag it and use it. And again, this is right out of the Silent Weapons document. It says, an excerpt from page 7, the quality of education given to the lower class must be of the poorest sort, so that the mote of ignorance is vitally important, that you understand the level of surveillance and tracking and monitoring that are planned. So on page 8 of the Silent Weapons document, they talk about the general concepts. But what they also talk about is the definition of a silent weapons system. And the definition, they say, is when a silent weapon is applied gradually, the public adjusts and adapts to its presence and learns to tolerate its encroachment on their lives until the pressure, both psychological and economic, become too great and they crack up. They also tell us, therefore, The silent weapon system is a type of biological warfare. It attacks our vitality, our options, our mobility of individuals, of a society, by knowing. That's the data collection. That's Bluffdale, Utah. That's the cameras. That's all the tracking. That's the camera in your computer screen when you're sitting behind your computer. That is the flicker rate, and that's what's happening on your televisions. Everything that's coming wireless into your home. That's the wires within the walls of your home. It's all tracking. They talk about by knowing and understanding and manipulating and attacking our sources of natural and social energy and our physical, mental, and emotional strengths and weaknesses. And they say that they will control it all. Now, what is also very important is what Rothschild discovered about energy. He said he discovered there was a basic principle of power, influence, and control over people as applied in economics. The principle is very simple. Quote, "When you assume the appearance of power, people soon give it to you." So we've had a great many people assume the position of power. And because we have been intentionally kept very busy, we have given our trust to those that represent us, and they don't. And as far as the data collection in this 44-page document, they talk about wanting to know, and keeping in mind this was put together in the 40s. And it was adopted at the very first Bilderberg meeting in 1954 in the Netherlands. And they wanted to know back then, in the 40s, about each and every single one of you. The what, where, why, when, how, and who. They were going to look at general sources of information. They were going to look at telephone taps. This is in the 40s. Analyzing your garbage. Surveillance. Behavior of your children in school. They were also going to know how you lived based on the food that you ate, the shelter that you lived in, the clothes that you purchased, the transportation. They also would know your phone bills because they would look at your itemized phone calls. They would know if you were married because they would look at your marriage certificates and birth certificates, etc. They would know your friends, your associations, your political affiliation. They would know your personal paper trail because they would know your banking account statements, your credit card purchases. Everything was tagged and planned to be tagged back in the 40s with the Universal Product Code. This is no new news. We didn't read this 44-page document, and we weren't in a school that told us any of this. And you are right now. And you can pull these documents down for yourself, and I hope that you do. Because that's only how you're going to learn what we can do. Now, as I proceed, it's going to sound a little bit daunting, and it is. And if you're concerned, that's good. You should be. But what we are also going to talk about are solutions. And that's the most important thing. But we have to work our way to the solutions, and we can't get to solutions without understanding what the problem is. So I'm outlining the problem. So I don't want you to have your chin on your chest too soon. Not too soon. They also talked in the silent weapons document that other methods of attaining data from us would be through our IRS forms. They said that if they gave us more write-off ability by putting more detailed information in the IRS forms, they could track and monitor us further. They also are using welfare, Social Security, USDA food stamps, and grants and subsidies. They say this: the principle for these ploys: the citizen will almost always make the collection of information easy if he can operate on the free sandwich principle. Eat now and pay later. We're paying dearly now for the information that our parents gave them, and we didn't know, and they didn't know. But now you're learning, you're hearing in the documents. They also go on to talk about government sources via intimidation: the IRS, OSHA, the census, etc. They'll learn your patterns of living. Again, your belief systems, your contacts, how you vote, your friends, your strengths and weaknesses. And they tell us that they will keep the public ignorant. These are their words. This is in their document. They say they will maintain access to control and prices for feedback, and they will do shock testing. They will implode the economy, and they will charge us more through shock testing. They would know how we're receiving all this information based on the receipts and the amount of drugs and alcohol that we use. That would show our mental stability at that time. So very important to understand the depths of this document. They say they will destroy our opportunities and they will allocate our opportunities. They will control the economic environment. They will control the availability of raw materials. I just wanted you to understand primarily it's a declaration of war, and we're the enemy. What is also extremely important to understand is that the federal and state governments are not real. They're privately owned corporations called governments. And we'll get into more information so you can check into that. They're not real. They're privately owned corporations called governments. In other words, we have a system where we have banks and corporations that have been posing as legitimate governments, and they're not. It's U.S.